I'm not going to be able to make it today. I actually just got arrested. I'm headed to the station. I'm going to try to bond out.
Alright, what for?
I guess battery.
Put your hands behind your back now. The local officer had no idea who he was arresting. The man on the ground, face pressed into hot pavement, reached slowly toward his jacket pocket and said 4 words that changed everything. "I'm federal. Call this." Seconds later, the officer would find an FBI badge. Minutes later, backup units would flood the scene. And what happened next would trigger one of the most controversial internal reviews that department had seen in years. Because this wasn't just about an arrest, it was about what happens when law enforcement collides with itself, and whether a badge should ever change the outcome. How did this happen? And more importantly, was what happened next lawful police work or professional courtesy pushed too far? This all unfolded on a humid Friday evening just outside of Houston, where 43-year-old Special Agent Daniel Mercer had just left a federal task force briefing involving an interstate fraud investigation. Mercer wasn't some rookie fresh out of the academy. He'd spent nearly 15 years with the Bureau. One piece of knowledge can change how a situation ends for you. Subscribe now so you're prepared. Then share this video and tell me what you think about it in the comments. By all accounts, he had a clean service record, strong evaluations, and a reputation for being meticulous. That night, he was off duty, driving his personal vehicle back home after a 12-hour day. Nothing about the stop initially suggested this would become national news. A local patrol officer, Officer Caleb Ruiz, a 7-year veteran with the city police department, spotted Mercer's black SUV allegedly drifting across lane markers twice within a half-mile. Nothing dramatic, no high-speed chase, no reckless driving, just enough movement to raise suspicion. Officer Ruiz activated his lights. Mercer pulled over immediately. At first, the interaction was routine. Body cam footage shows Ruiz approaching calmly. "Evening, sir. License and registration." Mercer handed over his license. Ruiz glanced at it. "Have you had anything to drink tonight?" Mercer answered quickly, "No." "Any reason you were weaving?" "Long day, probably tired." Nothing unusual yet, but here's where things changed. Ruiz later said Mercer appeared unusually tense. His right hand stayed near his jacket pocket. His answers became clipped. And when Ruiz asked if there were any weapons in the vehicle, Mercer hesitated. That pause changed the energy instantly. "Yes," Mercer finally said. "Lawfully carried." Ruiz stiffened. "Where is it?" "Inside my jacket. I'm federal law enforcement." That should have clarified things. Instead, it escalated everything. Ruiz immediately stepped back. "Keep your hands visible." Mercer nodded but turned slightly, apparently reaching towards the same pocket where his credentials were stored. Ruiz shouted, "Don't move!" Mercer froze. "I'm getting my badge. Hands up now." This is where tension overtook communication. From Ruiz's perspective, he had an armed driver reaching into a concealed area after announcing a weapon. From Mercer's perspective, he was identifying himself exactly as trained. Then came the critical moment. Ruiz drew his firearm. "Out of the car now." Mercer exited, slowly, hands raised, but Mercer reportedly said something Ruiz interpreted as non-compliance. Within seconds, Ruiz moved in, forced Mercer to the pavement, and cuffed him. Mercer shouted, "I'm FBI, check my credentials." Ruiz replied, "You should have said that before reaching." And at this point, the legal question becomes very important. Generally, officers conducting a lawful traffic stop can issue commands necessary for safety. Courts have consistently recognized that traffic stops can become dangerous quickly, especially when weapons are involved. An officer may temporarily detain, disarm, and even cuff someone if specific circumstances create reasonable concern for officer safety. That does not automatically make it an arrest. It can still be considered investigative detention depending on duration and justification. Now here's the complication. A citizen lawfully possessing a firearm and even identifying themselves as law enforcement does not erase an officer's right to control the encounter. If Ruiz reasonably believed Mercer was reaching for a weapon, a court may find his actions justified, but that depends heavily on whether Mercer's movement was clearly threatening or merely misunderstood. and this can depend on jurisdiction, departmental training, and what body cam ultimately shows. But the next part is where this case became explosive. Once Mercer was cuffed, Ruiz searched the jacket pocket. Inside was a loaded service weapon, and directly behind it, an FBI credential wallet. Ruiz opened it. His posture changed immediately. Oh. The footage shows a long pause. Then Ruiz keyed his radio. Dispatch, stand by. Another pause. Then, request supervisor. Also notify federal liaison. That was protocol. Perfectly reasonable. But then Mercer said something that would dominate headlines. Call SAC Reynolds. Tell him Mercer's been detained. Ruiz hesitated. Mercer repeated, use the number inside the credential wallet. And this is where officer discretion matters. Ruiz was under no legal obligation to facilitate that call immediately. A detained person generally does not control the flow of a roadside investigation, but departments often coordinate directly when another agency's sworn personnel are involved. Ruiz made the call. And within 15 minutes, 3 unmarked federal vehicles arrived. No sirens, no lights, just presence. 2 suited agents stepped out. Then, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Thomas Reynolds himself arrived. Body cam captured the exchange. Reynolds approached calmly. What's the issue? Ruiz explained the stop, explained the reach, explained the takedown. Reynolds listened, then looked at Nasser, then back at Ruiz. You can uncuff him. Ruiz didn't move. With respect, sir, he was detained based on conduct I observed. That answer would later earn Ruiz praise from legal analysts because authority matters, but jurisdiction matters too. An FBI supervisor cannot simply override a local detention without lawful basis. And for several tense seconds, nobody moved. Then Ruiz's sergeant arrived. After reviewing the body cam playback in real time, he made the decision. Remove cuffs, separate everyone, continue investigation. Mercer was released from restraints, but not cleared. A field sobriety screening followed. No signs of impairment. Vehicle check came back clean. No warrants, no violations beyond the original lane drift. No charges were filed. Legally, this enters complicated territory. Could Ruiz search Mercer's person? Generally, yes, if conducting a protective frisk based on specific safety concerns. Could Mercer be handcuffed temporarily? Possibly, if reasonably necessary during the detention. Could federal agents demand release? Not automatically. And this distinction matters. Badge status does not grant roadside immunity. Not for local police, not for federal officers, not for anyone. But legality and policy aren't always the same thing. Even if Ruiz acted lawfully, departments must still ask whether communication could have prevented escalation. Likewise, even if Mercer intended to identify himself properly, reaching near a weapon during a stop creates obvious risk. Both things can be true. The aftermath moved quickly. Mercer filed an internal complaint alleging excessive force and improper detention despite immediate identification. The FBI requested formal review. Local police released body cam footage after public records pressure mounted. The internet split instantly. Some viewers argued Ruiz overreacted and treated a cooperating federal agent like a threat. Others argued Mercer created the danger by reaching before clear instruction. The department's internal review ultimately cleared Ruiz of misconduct. Investigators concluded his use of force was objectively reasonable based on perceived threat indicators at the time. However, they also recommended revised interagency contact protocols for armed credentialed personnel during off-duty encounters. Mercer was not disciplined publicly. The Bureau issued only a brief statement acknowledging an operational misunderstanding during a local enforcement contact. No lawsuit followed, no charges, no suspension. But the incident became a case study in police academies across multiple states. And that's because accountability is not always about punishment. Sometimes it's about examining whether everyone involved could have made better decisions. Did Officer Ruiz have legal authority? Maybe, and likely enough to satisfy policy review. But having authority does not automatically mean every decision was optimal. Drawing down and going hands-on creates enormous risk. If clear verbal control could have resolved the situation, that matters. At the same time, Mercer's training should have told him exactly how dangerous sudden movement near a firearm appears to responding officers. That matters too. This is what real accountability looks like. Not blind defense of police, not automatic condemnation. Careful analysis of conduct, authority, judgment, and consequence. And the biggest lesson here applies to everyone watching. Roadside encounters are high-stress environments where small misunderstandings can become major confrontations in seconds. Remain calm, move slowly, narrate your actions clearly. Do not argue on the roadside. If questioned extensively, ask whether you are free to leave. If detained, comply physically and challenge mistakes later through documentation, complaint processes, and court review if necessary. And if legal counsel becomes necessary, invoke that right clearly, because the street is rarely where legal disputes are won. The courtroom is. So now the question is yours. Was this lawful police work under pressure, or did professional courtesy and badge politics turn a routine traffic stop into something it never needed to become?